Hi everyone, this week on the show we're playing the FYM66HD and the FYM60HD. But it led us to talking about the OM and where it came from and when it disappeared and when it came back again, and it's a great story how it influenced music. Please join us on Alvarez TV. We resolved.
Oh no.
For the first time ever.
We have, yes, we resolved.
Great. Hi everybody.
Hi,
Welcome
everyone.
back to the show.
How you doing?
What are we doing today?
I have absolutely no idea.
Really? Just picked up two guitars and off we go.
Yes.
But what two guitars? I'm such a dreadnought person, but every time I pick up an OM, I do get it. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm sitting there thinking, gosh, it's so clear.
I know.
And you're not dealing with all that woof and power and overtones.
These are a bit special though, aren't they? I mean,
they are special. I mean, these are our Hondurans, but
yes.
And the size sort of brings you in a little bit and makes you a bit more intimate with the instrument.
What I find interesting, and I know we're going to get into this when we start talking about the history of where it all came from. These, for me, I don't want to thrash these guitars. I kind of want to just, what we're doing there seems like a natural thing for me to do. That wasn't the original intention, was it? When they were first designed, when a certain Mr. Martin came up with the idea.
Whether it was the triple O or the OM, and we can get into that, like what's the difference and all that sort of stuff. You know, the blues, folk, fingerstyle people gravitated towards this body shape. And the flat pickers gravitated towards the dreadnought. We are there today still. And different reasons, you know, and different ensembles back in the day, and like when concerts moved to radio and things like that, and there's only one mic and the bluegrass sort of movement of people. And then, I don't know, reading about the history of all this, it really, Martin's journey in line with artists, trends and styles of music has been so entangled.
Yes, exactly.
Like, they've sort of influenced each other, you know, and I think that's really interesting.
I think what I was driving at was these guitars were considered to be, well, this size and shape of guitar would have been considered at one point
huge,
a very large guitar, right?
Massive.
Yeah.
Like today, we call it a fairly small body. 1850s. So before the 1850s, I mean, you know, even from Europe, you know, Stauffer and all that sort of stuff, they're small guitars, parlor shapes. And some of early Martins are really, really small guitars, like the 5, you know, it's a tiny sort of parlor.
This is interesting because the nomenclature, right? The whole idea of numbers and zeros and 5s. I don't really fully understand this. Was a 5 a larger guitar or a smaller guitar?
Smaller. So I'm not quite sure where it comes from. It's something to do with woodworkers and tool makers sizing, or some tradition. Somehow Martin adopted that. And the larger the guitar, the smaller the number. So they made a 5, I guess they made a 4, 3, 2 and a 1. And then they came out with the 0, the naught. That was their largest guitar.
And then they just started adding zeros to zeros.
So like the 0, which is the O, because you know, we've got to know them as O and double O and triple O's. So the O shape came out in the 1850s. That would be the shape that we today sort of think that's a parlor. Back then, it was a concert.
And it would have been a catgut string, because we didn't have any steel strings until the 20s or something. Or...
Yeah, a bit before. So you had an O shape. What Martin called a concert guitar was the largest guitar they'd made. To us now, it's like a more standard parlor size, what we've all sort of, you know, kind of adopted as a parlor. They called it a concert because people were coming out of the parlors and out of their homes, and guitar music was being made in a more public setting.
Of course.
So people wanted more volume.
Yeah.
Then when they came out with the 00, the 00, that was called the Grand Concert because it was bigger still, more volume, bigger venues.
And there would have still been a 12 fret at this point?
All 12s.
Yeah.
So like there was an O, 1850s, a 00 was 1870s. Then they came out with a 000, I think in 1902, something, or just turn of the century. And that was massive for the day. That was like a massive guitar. Until that time, these were all 12 fret instruments that just were very similar in shape, but just grown. Gut strings. It wasn't until 1929. There's a great website. There's a guy, he's got a website called onemans.com.
I have seen this website.
Got to give him a shout out because
it's a really cool site.
He taught me something which is super interesting, which I can't believe I've just learned about OMs, or when we get to OMs. In 1929, there was a band leader called Perry Betchley.
Like a dance band?
Yeah,
right.
Like a dance orchestra leader. And he had gone to Martin and asked for a guitar with a longer, slimmer neck. And there was the foreman in Martin at the time was a guy called John Diekman, and he invented this, which is the first 14th fret Martin guitar. I guess probably one of the first 14 frets, or the first 14th fret true acoustic flat top. It was called the OM, which stood for, obviously, for orchestra model, because I guess this guy was a leader of an orchestra dance band. That was in 1929. I guess it appeared in their price list apparently in 1930. But they stopped using the OM nomenclature. They stopped using the OM name because it didn't fit in their O, double O, triple O's.
So they made it a triple O.
So they made it a triple O. From 1930 to 1934, I think they made it a triple O in 1934. That small amount of OMs that were stamped OM from 30 to 34 are some of the most collectible Martins you can actually get.
Because there's a slightly different bracing.
There's a different bracing. There's loads of stuff out there, but what's the difference between an OM and a triple O? But if you go right back to the early 30s, my understanding is those early OMs that were stamped OMs are so sought after because they had a different bracing, they had a lighter bracing. It was a 1/4 inch, which is about 6 millimeter, 6.5 millimeter bracing, or certainly on the tone bars. I think the X was slightly heavier. And apparently they're the best sounding OMs or triple O's.
So their whole Reimagined series, is that going back to that?
Just go back a little bit. In 34, that was it. The OM had gone, and it didn't come back until 1990. I just read this. So there was no OM. There was some batches made, like some dealers had batches in 69, and there were other special requests to make OMs. But actually, it was the triple O sort of dominated for all that time. And then before 34 and afterwards, the difference between a double O and a triple O and an OM have changed, but mainly it's slightly different scale length, slightly different nut width. But what I didn't know until like this week was the bracing was different originally. And you're right, it wasn't until the Authentic series came out that they actually went back.
It's the Authentic, right, yeah.
The Authentic series, they went back and they did like CAT scans of all the guitars. And then they realized, those early ones had a much lighter bracing system. Now the Authentics do, so we haven't had original OMs until the Authentic series. And today there's they're both the same body shape.
And I presume this is our Adirondack. It would have been an Adirondack top.
Absolutely.
At that time.
And also, not to forget the 12th fret triple O, which I think is one of the most beautiful shaped guitars in history. So it's one of these, but it's a different shape because it came to here, so it's a very long body. The 12th fret triple O the body is actually as long as a dreadnought. It comes around here. In 29, when John Diekman invented this, he reshaped, this top out. But the triple O is beautiful, I think. The triple O 12th fret is a beautiful shaped guitar, which wasn't actually that popular and still isn't really. But I think it's a gorgeous looking instrument. So there was a grand concert. The triple O was called an auditorium, and then the OM was an orchestra model. Then they binned the OM nomenclature.
Model.
So it's wonderful history. And all of that intertwines with requests.
There's like a wealth of incredible websites and history on all of that.
Yeah, you can get totally lost off in it.
It's really great.
But all of that was requests from players. You know, the player asked for this longer neck.
Yeah.
And this became really popular because it was louder, there's more string tension, it was really comfortable, it's really good looking, there's lots of clarity. And then when it got to fingerstyle guys, you know, blues guys, all that, it just took off. And this is really the standard kind of 14th fret flat top. This and the Dreadnought, of course.
So our Yairi
OMs, get back to us.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just, you know, what's the difference between this and, like, say, a Martin OM in you know, in terms of nut width or scale?
So ours is different to both of them. So our nut width is, our scale length is exactly 25 inches, which is 635 mil. A triple O, gosh, is 24.9. OM is 25.4. So we're kind of in the middle. And our nut width is ours. Well, our nut width is 44 millimeter. I get a bit lost off here, actually. So somebody could tell me this. I think the original OMs, like as in the early 30s, I think had 1 3/4 nut, I believe. And then in 34, they changed it to 1 11/16, which is 43 mil. I think that's right. But now, I think both of them are 1 3/4 again.
Right. So 44.
Somebody could let us know. I'm not totally sure. But so ours is 44, which is actually slightly less than 1 3/4. So, and also we're basing on sort of metric sizing, where Martin's always been based on imperial sizing. I mean, how you measure sort of...
I get a bit lost off with the whole imperial and metric thing. So obviously we're in the UK, and we have a system where we use some of it and some of the other. We talk about inches and feet, and you know, and then we measure everything in millimeters and centimeters. And
well, it's very easy.
It's
like I talk about this with my colleagues in the States, like measuring, you know, 1 inch and 17/32s or something is pretty difficult. So the metric system, well, we grew up with it, so it's easy. But I think that whole journey with players asking for stuff, you know, shaped what we play today, like coming out of the house, but you know, the guitar becoming popular in concerts. I mean, you can't even imagine it now. What do you mean, you know, the guitar was never played in concerts?
Before the guitar, before the OM, or before, would it have been a banjo? Would have been the instrument for the volume at that point?
Yeah, the banjo was dominant and loud, and I think that's why this became so popular. Not as loud as a banjo, but certainly more pleasant. Did I say that?
That might get you into trouble.
An OM more pleasant than a banjo.
I love a banjo though.
But then we got, you know, the difference between these two. So FYM66HD is all Honduran. From our vintage stash that we found. So it's aged for 50 years.
And this
plus.
particular one is we've had this about 3 or 4 years here.
3 or 4 years,
So it's really starting to come into its own. It's really beautiful, it's opening up.
And this is our FYM60HD, which is 4A Adirondack top and mahogany backs and sides, vintage Honduran mahogany. So we'll A-B these two anyway, so you can get a good
because there is a difference between the pair of them. You really can tell.
Oh, massive!
You know,
you've got this like sparkle, and you know, the Adirondack's stiffer, and or feels stiffer, but actually it's just, you know, you've got that kind of lovely trebles going on. I mean, it's just so.
Where this
is darker.
Yeah.
This is more polite.
Yeah, that feels twice the volume.
But that's there's a lovely warmth to this.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And you can dig in, and it will, you know, it will start barking at you. That's nice.
Yeah.
But I think as an OM or a triple O, fingerstyle, clarity, size, comfort, it can do everything. You also feel comfortable strumming on these as well, which I don't so much on a parlor. I feel a bit like, I feel odd strumming on a parlor. but you don't on these, so they are really the all-rounder, would you say? Do you think you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was watching a couple of things recently, and I think I'd watched a really interesting YouTube piece about it, and someone had said, you know, this is the ultimate kind of compromise. It's right in the middle of everything. Very, very versatile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never had one of these guitars the size until, you know, I guess we'll have them hanging around, and they're lovely to play. So great to record. Amazing.
Beautiful to record.
Really
absolutely.
Focused and
yeah. But will they be these? And so you can have a good listen between the difference. They're exactly the same brace and everything. It's only the tops that are different. And thanks for joining us on our OM talk.
Thank you very much.
Certainly I learned this week, especially about the bracing and Mr. Diekman, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Great.
Very interesting indeed.
See you next time, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Cheers. See ya.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. If you want to watch more videos like this one, click the video on the screen now.